Hi, everybody. It's January of 2025, and it's the spirit of this month to record and put out there goals, resolutions, ambitions for the upcoming year. So I thought I'd put together a short video to talk about some of that just on a personal level and as it relates to kind of my thoughts about this channel and some ideas I have for things to do with this channel potentially. Hopefully generate some feedback and some questions and some input on that from those of you who follow it. So, to that end, I'll just talk a little bit about my personal reading ambitions and goals for 2025, and then I will end by talking about my plans for the channel. So, first of all, kind of my overarching goal, or my overarching kind of thought I'm having as it relates to my reading ambitions for this upcoming year is actually slower reading, and probably that will translate into fewer books, I'm guessing. So sometime last year in 2024, I put together this video that I still totally stand by. That's how to read 100 books in a year. It kind of goes over my, I'll put a link to that in the description if you haven't seen that, but it kind of goes into how I built up the reading muscles to read 100 books in a year. And I still think that's like a laudable goal, especially if you're trying to increase your amount of time you spend reading as opposed to things you spend in other pursuits that maybe you feel like aren't as worth your time and energy. So I hope people find that video helpful and some of just my personal reflections there. But here's the thing. I've done that for years now. I think it's been 8 years, maybe 9 years since I've hit that goal every year. So that's hundreds of books. Not all unique books. I've reread a bunch of stuff, but I guess my thought on that, I have mixed thoughts on it, having done it for some time now. And on the one hand, I still love reading, and I love that goal for the fact that I was able to accomplish it, and the fact that it does feel like an accomplishment to read that many titles in a year. On the other hand, there's a shadow side of it, which is you can get caught up in the number of books you're reading, as opposed to the quality of the titles you're reading, or the depth and the quality and the way in which you read those titles. You can be a little bit more concerned about. It's just the classic problem of like production and efficiency versus meaningfulness. And it can at times militate against the reason we read in the first place, which is to slow down, to reflect, to be caught up in wonder, transcendence, meditation. You know, like if your pursuit of reading starts to work against the very reason you start reading in the first place, it kind of raises some questions. And I haven't gotten to that point myself. It's not that I've totally lost the plot, as it were. But there are times in which I've found myself more curious about the number of books I've read. This happened especially earlier on, when I was starting to hit that goal. Especially the first year I hit that goal, I was really worried about whether I was going to make it when it come to those last months of the year. You start totaling how many titles you've read and how many you need to get through and how many weeks you've got left. And as soon as you start going into that mindset, you've kind of started to get derailed, I think. So I've reflected on it more, and there's some great booktubers that, push back on some of these things that I've watched some of their videos, and it's been very convicting in a good way and challenging. And it's made me think back to why I read and why I love to read, and how important is the goal of reading 100 books a year is something I've been wrestling with. And I guess personally for me, I've kind of gotten to the point where I feel like I've done that, and like I've proved to myself, for what that's worth, that it's something that I can do, and I've done it with regularity now for years. And I'm saying all this, and I may still read 100 books this year. I'm not sure, but I'm not going to worry about it, I suppose. That's kind of my first resolution, my first goal for 2025, is not be worried if I read 100 books this year. And that links to kind of the overarching piece, was just, I want to read more slowly, and I want to read more classics, which, quote unquote, that's always a hard thing to define, but I want to read older books. I want to prioritize reading older books more than I've done lately. And these things all kind of hang together for me, because part of the reason I've gotten to read so much, I tend to read more new things, and newer books are written in the vernacular and the style of the current time, so they're easier to read. Many of them, especially if they're geared at popular level, are written to be read more quickly. They're more time-stamped in terms of the things they're wrestling with and addressing. And all those things are fine. It's not a negative judgment on all those things, but it does mean that those are the kinds of... If you're really trying to read lots and lots of books, I think there's a reason that the gravitational pull towards reading new, current, timely, stylistically easy to read material. And that's kind of the mode I found myself in. And I want to get out of that this year. I guess that's my goal. I want to get out of that mode. I want to read older things. I love C.S. Lewis's intro to Athanasius on the Incarnation about the argument for reading old books. He argues in that foreword, that introduction, that you should read 2 old books for every 1 new one. And by which he means you should read 2 books written by people who are no longer alive for every 1 book you read by someone who's currently writing. I don't think I'm going to do that, per se, that ratio, but I do want to get much more towards at least maybe 1 for 1. I don't even know if that might even be a hard thing for me to hit, but I want to read more old books this year. That's what I'm coming to. I really feel like that's the right step for me to take in my reading life. And so that dovetails into my next goal, which is to engage in theological retrieval. This is something that it's been ignited in me. Gavin Ortlund is someone who's done a lot of good work in more of the Protestant evangelical side of things on this, but it's a known project that's kind of around, particularly in the Protestant world. There's this popular kind of rendering of the Reformation, and particularly certain streams coming out of the Reformation. I've mentioned this before, I resonate a lot with the Anabaptist radical reformers more. In that landscape, and but this is especially an endemic problem, I think, in more radical Reformation kind of streams, is to just chuck everything that went before, and especially that whole intervening millennia between essentially Augustine and Luther, or Augustine and Menno Simons, or whoever, pick your magisterial reformer. Chuck that whole millennia and get back to what was going on before, but in a simplistic way. And that's not what theological retrieval is about. Theological retrieval is more about like reclaiming the theological gold and resources from the entirety of the Christian tradition. And as someone who occupies more of the evangelical Protestant kind of space, I'm in that space, whether I like it or not all the time, I'm in it. I am really impressed and excited by the calls for theological retrieval from people like Gavin Ortlund and Matthew Barrett and others. So I want to all my goals are kind of coming together under this, which is like slower reading, more older books, and engaging in theological retrieval. So I want to read this year about theological retrieval. Like, I want to read new books on the project of theological retrieval. I want to read Ortlund's book on it. There's a book, I'm blanking on the name of the author at the moment, but it's about renewing. I'll put an image of retrieving the past, renewing evangelicalism, renewing the tradition, something like that. I want to read that book this year. I want to finally sit down with Matthew Barrett's edited collection of essays on classical Trinitarianism, which to me is essentially a theological retrieval project. But I also want to do actual theological retrieval myself. I want to actually read old theological texts. So here's my first super practical goal. This year, I've decided I am going to read the City of God. I'm going to read Augustine's whole City of God in 2025. I found through Mere Orthodoxy, I'll put a link to this below too, there's a year-long reading plan for getting through City of God in a year. I printed that out. I've been checking off chapters. I'm going to read City of God by Augustine over the course of this year. I love the reading plan. I didn't know this, but that book in particular, the chapters are super short, so you can read a handful a day. So I invite anyone who wants to join me in this goal. Let's read City of God together by Augustine. And then I have a whole pile of the pre- and post-Nicene fathers on my Kindle, so I'm hoping to dig through that more, but primarily I want to read City of God in 2025. So slower reading, probably fewer books, more older books. I'm going to continue to read and review new books as they come out because I really do enjoy that. I'm not going to stop doing that on this channel, but I want to kind of mitigate the amount of only new stuff I read season it with some of this older stuff. And that leads to another thing I want to get back to on this channel. I believe it was in 2023, I was really heavy into my project to get through Charles Taylor's A Secular Age. I don't know if anyone who's watching this was following me for those videos, but I was doing a video per chapter of Secular Age. I made it through about 5 the introduction and the first 4 or 5 chapters. I want to get back into this. This has admittedly gotten a bit derailed for me because I've been so focused. This is what kind of got me thinking on some of my goals, is I've been so focused on new stuff on reviewing new books, which again I love to do. I'm going to keep doing that, but I miss spending time with this book, and especially I miss the process of putting together a video per chapter, which forced me to reflect and recapitulate and articulate the principles in the book that are so helpful for me. So this is not, it's not an old book. I think it will be a classic. I think this is a pre-classic, if I could call it that. I think it's going to stand the test of time. But I want to get back and read this. I want to finish Secular Age. I want to finish my video project of going through it chapter by chapter in 2025. I'm going to put the gauntlet down. I want to do it this year. So I'm going to force myself to get back into it and put those videos up on this channel. And then that finally leads me to the last couple things I want to say. My goals for this channel. I always try to tell people I don't have delusions of grandeur about my YouTube channel. I've already been really encouraged by the traction it's gotten with some people, and the notes that I get from people have been really encouraging. I really appreciate, for those of you who are watching, if you sent things in like feedback and questions or just words of encouragement to what I'm doing is what it's meant to you. I read that and I appreciate it. Please know that I appreciate it. And I've already been encouraged beyond what I kind of expected for what I'm doing here. So I'm not I'm not going to put out a let's hit X number of subscribers this year. I am really just not interested in pushing in that direction. I just want to keep reading good stuff and telling people about the stuff I'm reading and helping people find things to read. That's what I want to do. I want to represent the reading life well as a person of faith. I also just would like to represent a culturally engaged, thoughtful, theologically robust way of being I'm a Protestant by conviction. I want to keep representing that here for what that's worth in my kind of little corner of the world. And I'm representing that through books and through reflecting on good books. I'm just going to keep doing that. So that's all my big caveat to say, my plans for the channel are not grand. I'm not going to challenge you to send this to so many people and whatever. Not going to do any of that. But I do have two specific ideas that I'm wondering if would be edifying, helpful, encouraging for those of you who do follow what I'm doing here. One thing that I'm going to look into is providing my work in an audio-only form through a podcast feed. Some people have asked for that. Some people have reached out to me for that, and it doesn't look like it would be that challenging to do technically. So I'm going to try to do that this year. I'm going to try to start providing all my reviews and all my barely evangelical videos and all that stuff in an audio-only format, so it'll be available in multiple ways. I will keep everyone here posted on the progress on that. One viewer has already reached out to me and given me some helpful tips on that, so thank you. You know who you are. That's a goal I have, is to provide an audio form, and then I'll probably go back to lots of stuff I've done over the past few years and then re-release it on that podcast feed in the audio-only format. So please reach out to me if you have questions or thoughts or feedback on that idea. And then the second idea for this channel I have, this is something I've been chewing on for about a year. I haven't put any energy into it, and I wanted to kind of put it out there first and get input from those of you who might be interested. But I've wondered if I feel like there's a little bit of traction around what I'm doing, and you get a lot of feedback from people who are grateful that they find books because I review them. I've wondered if there would be interest in doing some sort of book club, book discussion group. I know other YouTubers do this, so I know I'm not the first person to come up with the idea, but I'm just curious if there would be a critical mass of viewers, listeners, who would be interested in engaging at a deeper level of that. I don't know practically how that would look yet. I need to do a lot more research into how other people do this. I don't know if there would be some sort of minimal investment level paywall, so to speak, to put some skin in the game, as it were, to get into that circle of people who would do a book discussion. I don't know how those all would play out yet, but it's something I keep thinking about that I think could be super fun and super encouraging and could maybe build a little bit of relational kind of capital and community around the people that appreciate this little channel I have. So I am imagining something like a book group that chooses a book every month or two and gets on some sort of digital video call to think about it together, reflect on it together. I think that could be really rich, and I'm just not sure if there's enough interest in that, enough space in people's lives, enough momentum and energy to even kind of make that happen. But I'm putting it out there because I think 2025 could be the year we try that. And if you are interested in something like that, please let me know. Reach out to me, comment, whatever. You know what to do. Please indicate your interest so that I get a sense of whether or not this would be worth kind of pursuing this year. So that's my state of things. Those are my goals, my thoughts looking forward for 2025. Slower reading, more old books, theological retrieval, continuing to review stuff, reading City of God, finishing Charles Taylor's Secular Age, audio only format, and potential book club discussion groups. Those are my thoughts about 2025. So hopefully that's not me getting out over my skis or getting too grand. But those are the things that I feel could be worth putting some time into this year. So thank you for those of you who are kind of journeying along with me on all this stuff. Thanks for all the feedback I get from you. Thanks for the ideas that you send in. Thanks for the book recommendations you send. All the above. I really love it. Appreciate it. I've been really gratified by kind of where things are, even as they stand here at January of 2025. So feedback, questions on anything I've just talked about, please comment away. I'll try to link to everything I mentioned in the description. And as always, thank you for taking some time to watch.